Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this very special event. We are gathered here today to launch a very special book called Reporting India by Mr. Prem Prakash, who's the chairman of Asian News International, ANI, and leads very little introduction, at least for us journalists in the media world. I would also like to specially welcome Lord Rummy Ranger, a friend and somebody who's well known in Indian diaspora circle and UK political circles, and an eminent member of the Indian community who's here to launch the book. May I first request Lord Rummy Ranger to kindly launch the book formally, and then we'll proceed further and also make brief remarks.
Thank you, Manishji. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, CV Bhai, for being here. And it's a great honor for me to be asked to launch a remarkable book, a journey of a young journalist who started his journey when there was hardly any mod con which we enjoy today. So it's been a remarkable journey which has brought so much benefit to the Indian news industry. We are witnessing the fruit of that effort today. So it's a great honor for me to launch this book. I read this book myself, and it is a fascinating account of development of India, development of journalism and the news agencies in India, right from the time of independence and to the modern today. So I think it's not just important for journalists, it is important for all those people who feel for India, who want to understand how the Indian development took place. So it's a great honor for me to be asked. And I tell you, Premji, you have underpin India's democracy with your work because journalists are very important to share the news and to make sure that the rule of law prevails. As I was reading your book, I felt I was watching a movie on the evolution of journalism and development of India without any danger which you had to go through covering those news stories. There will be no exaggeration for me to say that Premji, you are the father of Indian journalism. As it, what if it wasn't for you, your pioneering work, then I don't think the news agency as they flourish today would be flourishing. Your vision has led to cooperation and collaboration with the foreign media that has really put India on a global map. The birth of ANI, the Asian News International, has been a remarkable achievement for you, which that has given a great impact to the broadcasting news in India and beyond. It is worth remembering when you started your journey, there was no satellites, there were no internet, there were no mobile phone or anything. Your tenacity, your commitment, your dedication, and your skills have been able to keep you going for so long. It's a remarkable journey. It's not just 1 year, 2 years, it's nearly 70 years. Yes, and I was only 3 years old when you started your career. So therefore, it is amazing how you improvised and how you took chances, risked your life to be the first with the news. You took many arduous journeys fraught with danger, covering Afghan war, Kashmir war, liberation of Bangladesh. They were not, easiest things to cover. And especially in those days when everything was not as organized as it is today. You took chances, you made connection, and you bypassed so many hurdles to be the first to give us the news. So I tell you, I salute your ingenuity, how you were able to go through those boundaries without the help of what we have today. Uh, Covering war of Afghanistan, I think was very dangerous. I would never go even in the peaceful of time because, and you went there time and time again, even to places like Ghazni, unruly places. I'm sure you were born with 7 lives because if it wasn't for the blessing of Almighty with 7 lives, the amount of chances you took and the amount of near misses you had, you wouldn't be around here today if you were not blessed with seven life. The book, it has invaluable information about so many aspects of uh, life in India. The book described the famine in Bihar. It described emergency rule in India, how the voter rejected Prime Minister Gandhi at that time. The partition of India is in that book. Chinese aggression is in that book on 1962. 1960 war is covered very beautifully. I could never thank you enough for giving me so much knowledge about the 1971 war, Kargil war, the golden storming of Golden Temple, the riots in Delhi or in the India against Sikh, Bihar, famine, you name it, even the Gujarat riots are covered in that in detail. And the best thing I like about you, that your candid account of every prime minister from the independence today, their rise and fall, and where they went wrong and why they went wrong, is described so eloquently, beautifully in your book. You, you, you're a family man, Premji. I was moved with one of your story when you arrived as a young journalist in Geneva, and the first thing you bought three watches, one for your father, one for your brother, one for yourself. That just shows the love you have for your family. That made me very emotional, by the way, because I know how difficult it was to raise money or to save money from the meager allowance you were getting at that time. But the thought for you to present to your father a watch from Geneva and to your brother speaks volumes about your love for your family. One of one of your remarkable qualities is that you're very humble. That you're very humble, you're very down to earth, and you have no airs and graces about you. You get on with job as a professional. Your reporting news is more important than anything. And many journalists will earn money, but they will not earn the respect you have. The respect you have earned is invaluable. I don't think people can ever put a price on the respect you have to have relationship with the top people of India, the Prime Minister, the presidents, and to walk into Trimurti Bhavan or to their residence or to go to high ambassadors' residence and stay there and be looked after by them speaks volume of your humility and your kindness and the decency which you project wherever you go. So I cannot say enough about you because I think you are epitome of courage, your epitome of love, dedication to your profession, and what we today we see in India is the pioneering work which you've done. I doubt if there's anyone who has risen from the lowest level to the highest level as you have. And I tell you, this is something, a legacy you are enjoying now, we are enjoying, and journalists will enjoy, your family will enjoy. You have given your family not only love, but also the respect which they will enjoy for the rest of their life. So I would recommend this book wholeheartedly. It's available on Amazon. If if you haven't read it, please read it. You will not regret it. In fact, you will have a picture of India over 70 years in detail, in making sense. It's a user-friendly book. Even a dumb man like me could understand how beautifully, easily it's been written and what is behind the news and what is the implication of those what went wrong. So therefore, I can go on because it's such a beautiful book and written by such a remarkable person, who is a role model. And as Manish ji just said, how much respect CB Bhai just said, how much respect he has not just in India, but globally. That is a remarkable achievement. So I salute you, Premji, and you have been honored by the British government with the MBE. That also is another feather in your cap, that you have been honored by many countries and also become a member of the British Empire. So therefore, what can I say? You You have created your own world. You're a self-made man. You created your own world with very little resources at your disposal, and you're empathy for others, your love for humanity, and your love for journalism, and your love to share news with the wider world will be a beacon of hope for so many young journalists that they should really emulate you, follow you, and they should read this book and to get some ideas how you covered those difficult areas of the world to be the first to share the news with the rest of us. So I salute you. I I'm humbled that you asked me to make me part of your life, which I will cherish for the rest of my life. So it gives me great honor to release this book covering India, a book that covers India, and not only covers India, it covers world scene also, the relationship of India with the world power, superpower, with Russia, with America, with Pakistan, with Bangladesh. It covers so many facets of India that it is a must for everybody. So it gives me great honor to release this book, and I hope that you will all read it and you will enjoy the journey of a remarkable journalist who had nothing when he started, and now he has given so much to the news, the media in India, that we are all connected, all sharing the vision of a remarkable man. And I thank you, sir. God bless you. May you continue to inspire people. May you continue to be a beacon of a true, honest journalism in India, because that journalism underpins the rule of law. So on that note, I'd like to commend these two organizations which have helped in this launch, uh, Vidyapath and Prabha Khaitan. You are doing a remarkable service to humanity, because what we do for ourselves will die with us. What we do for other will live on, and the legacy of Prem Prakash MBE will live on because he has done so much for others. So what you people are doing, and children are the future of India. I always say that the greatest wealth of India is her people. When in 1947 two countries were created, one to promote people on the basis of their religion, one to promote people regardless of their religion, India, where people were given equality, including women. I'm a single parent child, posthumous child who never saw my mother, but sorry, father, but a remarkable mother who worked as a teacher and brought eight of us, having lost her husband due to partition of India, country and ancestor home, and then came as a refugee, and then gave five sons to the defense of India, become the proudest Indian mother. So the women empowerment is a prerequisite for a civil society. And I am so delighted to see so many women on the panel today. And looking after children, I started my journey from a refugee camp. A lot of people like you helped me, gave me so many things, free clothes, free education for me to be where I am today. Yet, giving is good. By giving people, nobody suffers. I do a lot of charitable work now because when you give, you feel immense pleasure. You won't get that pleasure by having a great dinner or going to some nice place. But giving, making difference to humanity, and you people are doing so much. And I'm so delighted that you have joined a remarkable journalist to endorse his book and to support him. And please look after the children. They are the future of India. On that day, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you, Lord Ranger, for such beautiful, inspiring words, and obviously, not, as you couldn't have described the legendary journalist Prem Prakash ji any better for us. But without further ado, I will make a brief introduction about Munish Gupta ji, who is with us today. He's a reputed international journalist and media entrepreneur, a key founder of the global Indian diaspora movement, and a social entrepreneur. He has championed India as a South cooperation leader and development partner to Africa and now Latin America and Caribbean countries. A US resident now, Manish has been a speaker invited by the Indian government at the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas and received the Bharat Gaurav Samman by the UK Parliament in 2014. We are delighted to have him moderate the session, and I'd request that he introduced our esteemed panelists, Mr. C.B. Patel and Mr. Tim Witcher. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pooja. But before we do that, I would like to request all of us who have the book with us to actually formally show the book to everybody here,
Yes, indeed.
and formally launch the book. Um, thank you very much, CB Saab. I'm sure that you shall be getting the copy soon. A little bit of delay, but thank you so much. Thank you. Um, Thank you again, Lord Ranger. Those were very warm words, and you rightly said this book by Premji is a succinct anecdotal book on reporting India. There couldn't be a more appropriate title that he could have given. Those who have followed him and his work would know that. And he's not just a journalist, but I think he's somebody who conjugated India to the world and the world with India. Let me welcome Prem Prakash ji here, and very good to have you here, sir. Also, let me welcome my fellow panelists. Mr. C.B. Patel, he's the publisher and editor of news weeklies. Everybody in the UK would know him for Asian Voice, Gujarat Samachar, and many other theme-based magazines. He's also the chairman of the annual Asian Achievers Awards, Asian Voice Political and Public Life Awards, and the Asian Voice Charity Awards. A very eminent community leader from the UK. Welcome. I also have with me a colleague, a very senior international journalist, and currently the bureau chief of South Asia of a reputed top 3 global news agency. Everybody knows AFP. Mr. Tim Witcher has covered India for AFP for now more than 3 years and is also the vice president of the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia in Delhi. So thank you for joining us. I would also like to make a special mention today of somebody who's here, who's joined us for this discussion, and I know him, and I'm fortunate to know him, and we all in the media world revere him. Is Mr. Amit Khanna, and he wrote the foreword for the book. And while reading the book, I must punctuate here. He said something which is truly what it is. The book, and he said, Premji is a chronicler of India's tryst with destiny. We all remember these words of Jawaharlal Nehru on the eve of India's independence, that India now enters a tryst with destiny, and Premji has chronicled that for good 70 out of those 73 years. Let's move on. I will start the discussion first with very, the 17 chapters that I read in the book, Premji. Like Lord Rami Ranger said, you go through the book almost like non-stop, because in this book, it's not a very thick book, but you find the actual history of India of 73 years. You've so beautifully captured India and the region around us and the entire geopolitics in that region. But what struck me, a few things that struck me most were, for example, you started out by painting a picture of India's independence and how India was in the early years. Some of us haven't seen it, but you are fortunate to have seen it. So just tell us, as you've written in the book, India then, when you started covering it for journalism, and 70 years later, as you have covered India, India now today.
Thank you, Manish. Before I start, I must thank Lord Rami Ranger for his very kind words. He has overawed me. Thank you, Ramiji. You have been an inspiration for the community in Britain. And when I met you, you were an inspiration for me too, because I knew your story. I knew the sacrifice your dad made. And that was a terrible period. What you went through and came out of it is a remarkable story by itself. And as for the book, I would say I had really no intention to write, to be honest. But I was pushed by friends, many friends. One of them perhaps is not here at the moment, David Cogan in Britain, who was managing editor of his news and Reuters television later on, and pushed me to the point, said, I'll sit at my country home, you dictate, I'll write. I still didn't do it. But then last year, when I was recovering from certain illness, I was in Bangalore, And my son was there, and I said, applied to myself, well, I got to keep myself busy, and then we started this. I would give him dictation, and he would take it down, and that's how the book emerged. Now, to answer your question, Munish, what I have witnessed is evolution of India. I have seen how in Chandni Chowk, the British authority was shown every evening at 4 o'clock, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The water sprayer would come with his bushk and spray water on the street. And then the head of police of Old Delhi from the police station known as Kotwali would come out. Kotwali was there from the Mughal days. So the British inherited it and kept it. So he would come out on a horseback with two constables also on horseback and trot slowly through the street, go to the one end of the street, take a turn, go to the other end, which is the Red Fort, come back and go into the back to the police station. It had been shown to the rest of the city that the authority was there. If you ask me, it was a very good gesture in a way, because governments are respected not only by force, but 90% by the respect they have for the majesticity of a government. And then came as we saw, see, summer of 46 was a terrible summer in Delhi. Is there summer of 1946 was a terrible summer in Delhi because the Americans had started leaving. There were large number of American troops. Not many people know they were stationed in India because Japanese invasion was expected. As a matter of fact, Japanese Air Force had bombed Calcutta and northeast areas. So they were expected, and there was a severe battle in Imphal and Kohima, where Indian National Army also fought by the side of the Japanese troops. So the American troops had left. So the city, New Delhi city, almost became half deserted. And then the British troops started leaving because as India came on with Lord Mountbatten's arrival, India was coming on the verge of independence. And it was a great pity, if you ask me, that the leaders accepted partition of India. The interim government which ran, set up by predecessor of Lord Mountbatten, Lord Revell, who was not for partition. The interim government had failed because both Congress and Muslim League, who were represented in the interim government, Munish, could not work together. And the Congress at that point seems to have decided that if they create this trouble in independent India, we would not be able to lead India to its progress. They accepted the partition, not realizing the consequences that would take place. I have described it in the book. You kindly read it. Imagine the greatest migration of people took place at that time in history of mankind. Never so many people have moved in history of mankind from one place to the other. Never so much cruelty has been witnessed. Trains would come with slaughtered people on this side, train would go with slaughtered passengers on the other side. Women had been kidnapped, children had been killed. It was tragic. It was tragic. And then, as Lord Ravi Ranger described, the country which took to violence is still facing violence, and I feel sad for Pakistan because I was born in Rawalpindi and I knew the place. So that's how it is. That's how the book is. It's all about evolution of India. It's modern India. It was known as land of snake charmer and elephants, as I found in Britain. But today, it's not just an emerging power. It has power of its own in many ways. And we have just asserted it on the Chinese. This is the first withdrawal that the Chinese may have made anywhere, that they have made in Ladakh just now, and further withdrawals are going to take place. Go ahead.
Thank you, thank you. That's what I found in the book, Premji. It is such a soft, simple, easy read, but it takes you through literally the entire evolution of India. And that's why I personally recommend it to everybody, at least in the Indian diaspora globally, because, reading this little book will give you a quick uh, walk through the entire 73 years. So it's a great book. You talked about the evolution from then to now, and I agree with you. India is today not just an economic power, but a knowledge power and a haven for technology and innovation. And one of the things that I must bring up and ask you for a quick response is, how did you? I mean, you became a celebrated television journalist, and then you gave birth to one of the biggest television news agency. How did you grapple with technology through the years? I mean, you started very young, very early.
That's a that's a very straight question, because one thing which I keep telling my colleagues even at ANI today: stay ahead of technology. Which means before the West or anybody brings out technology, your imagination should see to it that you stay ahead. I started with when there you were 35 millimeter cameras, then came 16 millimeter, black and white, then came 16 millimeter uh, black and white with sound, then came 16 millimeter black and white with the magnetic track, then came 16 millimeter with color, and then when I saw in the television studios the first video camera appear, which was huge. I was in London, I was speaking with colleagues, and I said, wait a minute, the day is not far when this damn thing will be on our shoulders. And it happened. And look at the same video camera today, the guys hold it in hand. I have a back problem, which I have inherited from my work, because I used to carry those heavy cameras on my shoulder.
Very
So
true.
now one has to stay ahead of technology, Manish, whatever you may say. Uh, Technology ultimately beats you. I mean, look at this today. We are all talking. Their friends in Britain, their friends in elsewhere around India, and technology has put us all together, looking at each other.
I think this is one of the greatest lessons also of what we've just witnessed. We continue to witness, which is the pandemic. COVID-19 has taught us that technology has to be something that we must get used to and use it and bring it on our side. Thank you very much. I have tons. I mean, reading the book and having known you and worked with you a little bit, I have tons of questions. But before that, let me ask Tim. Tim, you read the book. I'm sure you're curious about a few things. You go ahead and ask a question. Then I'll come to CV Sab.
Okay. Thank you again for this invitation, Prem. Again, I don't want to spend too long, so I have a question, but I would just like to emphasize as well what Lord Rami Ranger said. Your determination and your bravery in this career really comes through in this book, but also your calm manner, which I can see in the way you're speaking now. So it was a great privilege, and I really loved reading this book, which I think will be an inspiration to other journalists around. One of the things that struck me, you devote quite a large part of the book to the emergency, which it clearly is really an important event for journalists as well as politicians. And there are a lot of people nowadays still talk about this. It's quite striking for me in my time in Delhi now. So I'm just wondering now, do you still see the fallout from the emergency in the way that people report on India and the way that politicians act here?
Well, emergency was a really a black day of dark period of Indian history, because our founding father, the first prime minister, who gave us three elections, oversaw three elections and gave India a legacy of democracy, would always say, I am comfortable with an irresponsible independent newspapers than with controlled newspapers. That was Nehru's vision about the press. However, to answer your question, what really happened was a political Machiavellian thing. The opposition and the Congress party at that time were confronting each other in such a manner that Mrs. Gandhi, who had to go into appeal the Supreme Court against the judgment given against her, was virtually not being permitted to go into appeal. The demand for her resignation was being raised at such at high pitch level. So much so that leading leader of opposition and a great freedom fighter, Jay Prakash, who was highly respected, gave a call to the military and the civil servants not to obey laws of an illegal government. So therefore, before chaos could take place, it seems some leaders of the Congress party, led by a gentleman late Siddharth Shankar Ray, came upon this chapter that civil emergency could be imposed. It was done, and unfortunately, once the emergency was imposed, power moved into the hands of extra constitutional centers of power, and then the dark period descended. I had to go, as I mentioned to you, into exile myself because the chief censor officer was a very dear friend of mine. And as I mentioned in the book, he asked me over for lunch, and I just told him, Harry, how come you suddenly asked me over for lunch? So he said, Prem, you have guessed it. I said, let's come to the point. He said, please disappear from here. I said, but what have I done? Because I was definitely using the tweaks and the weaknesses of the censorship guidelines in getting my stories abroad. And those stories were being published, were being shown, which the competition and some of them from abroad, I'm not going to mention names, did not like and complained to the center. Imagine black leg journalists. So I was victim of the system of not only emergency, but black leg journalists. So I had to go out, leave within 24 hours. And I was out for three months before I came back. So yes, that was a bad period, Tim. And I don't think we can be going back to that. As far as journalists working today, I'm afraid, to be honest, I do not, one of the complaints which I hear, not many journalists go to the location now. Many write their stories sitting in their comfortable home or office. Just get some information. Too many seek information from government officers and go by that, rather than making their own research, their own finding, being on location. And all through the book, I mentioned to you how on every danger, even in the danger situation, I had to be on location. Of course, my problem was also that I was a movie cameraman, apart from writing for Reuters and others. But I had to be on location. I had to see it. That's why I say that I have survived many a death. So that's about emergency and so on. Yeah.
No, but that's interesting because the vivid picture that you paint, the lucid stories that you write in your book, Premji, are all because you were on location and at every location, and so many of them. And as Lord Ravi Ranger said, God bless you. You've had so many lives and continue to be. A couple of interesting.
Tim was going to ask something more, wasn't it?
Sorry?
Does Tim have any follow-up on
You
what?
want to follow up? Do you have a follow-up, Tim?
I just wonder whether journalists today feel any pressure for censorship here.
That only, Tim, you can answer, because I am, as far as my journalists are concerned at ANI, they don't feel any pressure. They don't feel any pressure. They are moving freely. They are covering freely. No, they are not under any pressure.
Okay. Please move.
I will tell you also the tragedy of just some of the journalists today is, instead of reporting, they are also opinion giving now. When you give opinions, you must expect a equal and opposite reaction, whether from the authority or from anybody. If you have given an opinion, then please realize that opinion giving is the business of the editor, not of a reporter.
I certainly agree with that.
No, we certainly agree with that, and that's popped up in our discussions at the Foreign Correspondents Club many often. Um, Let me move over to CB Patel Saab. CB Patel Saab, I'm sure that you have something that quizzes you about Premji.
Munishji, namaskar. Prem Bhai, you made my day today. I'm glad, Munish, you remember our meeting many years ago in London. I had forgotten, but thanks very much. Look, I want to ask some personal questions to Prem Bhai. Prem, when you joined, why you joined journalism?
Why I became a journalist?
Why not politics? Why not making money into this?
I tell you what, I was among the founders of the National Union of Students of India in my college days. I was very active in my college also. So when I came back from Bombay, I wrote a long report about the meeting there and the founding of the National Union of Students. And I gave it to the principal and into the common room to the teachers. They all appreciated it. And I think that's where is the beginning of my reporting or journalism. I got interested in it. Then my father had a photographic studio, and my cousin was into photojournalism. So but because I had this instinct of writing, I got into it, and that's how I started. You are right. There were ample opportunities when India became free because the British were leaving. Lots and lots of jobs were opening up. For example, in Calcutta, a whole generation of industrialists emerged. I don't know for what reason some of the British industrialists and workshop owners left Calcutta because there was no danger. The Nehru had honored every foreign investor, particularly the British investors. In Parliament, Jawaharlal Nehru had said, I am not going to waste my money on nationalizing any foreign company because that money I can use on creating new companies. Those companies are here in India and abiding by the law, so why should I nationalize them? So I have lots of people in Calcutta, elsewhere, in Assam. Many tea estates were taken over for a song by other people. So that's how there were ample opportunities if one wanted to get into any business or industry or things, and it continued to be there. Yes, but I chose journalism. I liked it. Politics, no. At that stage, we didn't think politics was our cup of tea. And I was very young in any case. Age 20, how could I get into politics? Come on. I would have been some stupid, unpaid worker of some idiot, semi-literate politician.
Patel Saab, do you have a follow-up?
One more small question. Would you advise your children or people of your age to go into media now, Prem?
Would I?
Would you recommend media as a vocation or a career to a
It all
young
depends.
person?
It all depends on how they like. I mean, we have at ANI. It's a very young organization. We have lots of young people, very enthusiastic, very enthusiastic. But we have to mold them. The editors have to mold them. It's up to the editor to mold them because they all come with the enthusiasm coming out of. So there were no schools in my days. Nowadays, when they come out of school, they think, "Oh well, I am already on top of the world. I've got a degree, so nobody can." It takes a long time before you realize that you are now a journalist.
Munish, can I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead, please.
You wrote about India, and I know enough about you. Have you, and you are still young man, Prem,
Okay.
write about the diaspora, the overseas Indians, the link between the mother India and us? I think that is something which you should do, and Lord Ranger will, I'm sure, will cooperate as much as he can.
Diaspora has done us so proud. You know, it was such a treat today morning in the newspapers in the front page to read who is behind the landing of this vehicle on Mars.
Yes, correct.
A young Indian lady scientist in America, Suti Mohan. Fantastic. Our people have come a long way. I was reading a joke the other day somewhere. Uh, President Trump asking somebody, China and so on, and who is ruling the world? And then they can't decide. They turn around to Modi and say, who's ruling the world? He says, I don't know, but he names, God alone knows how many corporations around the world which are being run by Indian descendants. So he said, you decide who's running the world. But we still have to come a long way. We still have to come a long way.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I move on with my few more questions, couple of important ones, but one question from the audience that struck me, Premji, and I'm sure that you would love to answer this one because it's there in your book in bits and pieces, is Amrit has asked, of all the Indian prime ministers you have met, who impressed you most and who dismayed you?
Tough question. But let me say this. They were all very honest people who wanted to serve India, and they served India well. My disappointment was with my very dear friend, Chandrasekhar, who was a great leader in his own right, and he should not have accepted Congress support with only 60 odd MPs to rule the country. That not only became his downfall at the end, but India lost a great leader. And the one that I admired the most is tough one, because there were two of them who were very good. For example, Rajiv Gandhi, in his first term, the kind of things he did. The man had worked as a pilot. He knew how to earn money and how to spend it. And he knew the difficulties that common people face. The certain laws that he enforced at that time were absolutely right for the business and community and everybody. And then Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, during his period, the economy really got a push because while Manmohan Singh as finance minister or Narasimha Rao had pulled the economy out and made it free to take it forward, it was during Atalji's period that India really moved forward. The BJP's downfall at that time became, at the end of his career, at the end of his term, was because they took the slogan of India shining a bit too early.
Well, true. Few things in your journey stand out, Premji. We heard you on the emergency, but I think the other important thing that you covered, and Raviji talked about your covering Afghanistan at great risk to yourself. But I want to particularly focus on the war of liberation of Bangladesh. I mean, in short, how would you describe that journey and that period in India's history and in that country's history?
You see, it's in that country, I would say Pakistan, because Bangladesh at that time was part of Pakistan. It was East Pakistan. Now, for Pakistan, it was tragic in the sense, well, it was tragic and it was not tragic in the sense that though they held elections, and in the elections, the Awami League came out in majority on top with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman as its leader, which means legally Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had the right to become the Prime Minister of Pakistan. This was denied to him by the army, which is in Pakistan is largely a Punjabi army. And Bhutto even gave a proposal let's have two prime ministers. How can a country have two prime ministers? One for East Pakistan and one for West Pakistan. And that was rejected. And finally, Sheikh Mujib said, Ebar Shangram Mukti Shangram, that if we have to struggle for our rights this time, it will be a struggle for final liberation. Instead of listening to that, army sent General Tika Khan there, who cracked down on the people and butchered them. I mean, I saw some video later on uh, as I reached Dhaka after liberation, which a professor had covered. They lined up students from the university and shot them. They dropped down like pins. And then they started killing people in the villages and pushing the Awami League supporters. They had nothing else to go, come to India. So over 1 million refugees in India, surely India couldn't take it. How to send them back? So the mind was made up at that time to support the Bangladesh's war for struggle for liberation, because Sheikh Mujib had said, any agitation this time is a struggle for liberation. And that's how the refugees went back. Because then I had to report from inside, because how could I sit in Calcutta and say what's going on in Bangladesh? Pen pushers could, sorry to use that word, but guys who are writing only stories, they could do it from Calcutta, but they got a deep shock when my reports started coming out from Jessore, where I'd gone, Khulna, other places. Okay, it was risk to my life. I have described that in the book. When I escaped how closely. But that opened the eyes of the whole world as to what had happened. Because I saw mass killings. I saw dead bodies lying on the streets. The army hadn't even cleared those.
And definitely, those were very important moments captured. One more important incident, and then I'll move to some very interesting questions from the audience. But very quickly, another important history, or rather a downer in the history of India that you covered, Premji, was the 1984 riots. And your impressions, which we've read in the book, but just for the sake of our audience, very quickly.
You see, 1984 is a shameful period for Indian democracy. Pages 125 to 133 in my book carry that. I saw no reason, I was in Amritsar, that army should have been used to go in. The events prior to that, Akali party was then ruled by or run by a very decent gentleman, Sant Longowal. There was a Punjabi group surrounding Mrs. Gandhi, led by Gyani Zail Singh, Bhuta Singh, Dhawan, all these people. They kept on advising, but their aim was to control the Gurdwaras, which was tragic. And in their game, they picked up this gentleman, Bindranwale. And when they picked him up, they sent him out. I mean, I'm cutting the long story short. You will read the whole thing in pages 125 to 133. This fellow went into the Golden Temple. And gentleman, simple person as Santji Longowal was, he kept asking, who is killing the people, sometimes some people in the streets, in Hindus? Who is killing them? Why is the police not making inquiries? But somehow the group, this Punjabi group that had virtually taken control of situation, kept on saying, oh, things are bad, and reports to the Prime Minister were not honest enough. I was in Amritsar at that night when suddenly Mrs. Gandhi came on the radio and said, curfew is imposed in Amritsar, and the army is moving in. There was no curfew. There was no army. So who told her that? There have been periods of Manish in Indian history which are terrible, and these things shouldn't have happened. They will not happen in future, I'm sure. If they happen, it can only lead to disaster. It was a shameful period. Remember, the Sikhs and the Khalsa are our sword arm. So gurus have sacrificed themselves to save us, to save India, to save human rights. No other gurus have done so much as the Sikh gurus have done for human rights and saving. And I would like to say clearly to all my friends, particularly the Sikhs, that Indians are proud of them. Please don't be misled by few terrible incidents.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's, I think, one of those most the horrible period in modern India's history, but also one that's completely misread, misunderstood by many in different parts of the world. I will take some questions now. An interesting question. What do you think, as a person, as a doyen of Indian media, the traditional media, or moving from traditional to electronic media? Now we see the new media, social media. So the question is, what do you think of social media today?
See, in social media, everybody is becoming a journalist, and that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous. Whatever you feel like, you just put on. And we saw the tragic thing that happened here in Delhi a few months ago. Riots. Why? Because of social media. So social media somewhere way has to be found because there are no editors in social media. The people who are running the social media think they can make money from advertisements and that's the end of it. Let everybody do whatever they want. That's not right. I feel strongly about it. I feel strongly about it. I don't know how can the governments regulate them. I really don't. I have no answer. But social media at the moment is the groundwork, is the origin of fake news.
As a journalist, I would agree with you to a large extent. And this leads me to the next question from Aishwarya, who says, do you think India today needs stronger standards for journalists? And that's the way to control fake news. And what would those standards be?
So standards are simple. Uh, be honest, be on location, report the facts. Leave the opinion making to the editors. There was a time, I can assure you, in independent India, as happens elsewhere in democracies, leading editors were taken into confidence by the government in a discreet manner and told what was going on, what the government policies were. And those editors would never uh, make any misuse of that. Unfortunately, that is not happening in many places these days. So
One,
yes.
Sorry, do you want to say something more?
No, we got to just get back to the basics of journalism.
I think it's very important that the platforms that today, even the governments are fighting platforms like WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter. Platforms must understand that there is need to do something about fake news and social media. I mean, we open them up. This is the next question from Vikas. He's a friend of mine and colleague from France, part of Europe. He's saying, how do we distinguish news that's coming to us, even if it's coming in the form of news, not social media, whether it's fake or there is truth to it? You are one of the senior most editors sitting here. There's CB Patel and there's Tim. So I put this question to you first, Premji, and then I want CB and Tim to also answer this.
Well, my response to that would be, who is giving it to you? That's all.
Do you want to say something, Tim? I like that answer. Very, very well answered.
I think it is. Yeah, I mean the key to every story is the source. Okay, and then it's up to the reader to have trust in that source. That's why I don't have Prem's experience, but I'm over 30, so I've got a little bit of experience in news agencies, and really the source is the key. And we've turned down so many stories, incredible stories, because the source was just
totally doubtful. Yep.
CB, do you want to say something to that? Patel sir, do you want to say something? Or...
No, sir. Thanks very much.
Okay. One very little last question to you specifically about your book is from Sudha Parekh, who says, you took so many risks as a journalist to cover the objective stories. You went to locations. How did your family react to that? Now, that's a good, cute question.
First of all, my family never knew they were not on location. And I will
But they
tell
knew
them,
you were
when I
going.
come back, I will tell them. I can see my friend Mohammed Sarwar also is on there. Sarwar, why aren't you asking me something? Come on, unmute yourself.
Yeah, server, or maybe
I
Shivani,
think,
you can.
yeah, I think so. Now, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes, I
please.
can hear you.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. Prem bhai, listening to you is means reading the history. So I'm more interested in listening whatever you have written in the book, whatever you have shown your experience, and perhaps you know that as far as the Tashkent Muaida, Tashkent Agreement, then Simla Agreement. These are the two main topics which are very, very much interesting in Pakistan as well as India. So your book is not confined to the India. It is though it is written reporting India, but it is reporting for subcontinent.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, and when we have published the similar agreement contents and Tashkent contents in our newspaper in London, The Nation, the copies were also sent to Islamabad, and I learned it. Someone told me that there are some response from the government side is coming to your book. But now we are all waiting. What will be the response and how they will comment on it? You know it very well. But
I'm waiting for them too. I'm waiting for them too.
yeah, but definitely it will be a very, very honorable thing for me and for all the information of the Patel Saab and Rami Ranger Saab and other as well, that I am very much proud of having family relationship with you for the last 25 years. And I don't remember how it started, but
Well,
really
you
it is a
you
difference.
were you were in Z television as the
Yes,
news.
exactly. I was into Zee television, and then I had an opportunity to have an interview with Atal Bihari Vajpayee Saab, Jaswant Singh Saab, so many people here in
UK.
Indian
Yes.
UK. Yes, definitely in UK. So, but Prem bhai, as you know, I'm worried for not only the journalism of the subcontinent, but I'm worried for the subcontinent as well. Would is there be any, because you are so more senior to us, that I just want to ask you and others as well, is there any hope or any part that we can play in bringing India and Pakistan closer than fighting each other, finishing each other? Our media is a very, very important thing. We are teaching it, we taught our students and others as well, but what we are using, our media, it is totally against each other. How can we long? It is a very sad situation. We must do something like you have done, like others will done, definitely. But definitely there is a time that India and Pakistan should think over it, and they should improve the position of their poor people. This is what I want to know.
There's a famous song, "वो सुबह कभी तो आएगी." That
Well,
dawn will come. That dawn will come one day. Don't worry, it'll happen. Don't worry, it'll happen because both are nuclear powers, and nuclear powers know that they get destroyed. So let them quarrel. Let them have their border wars. Let them do whatever they want. They won't destroy each other. Ramiji, you were raising your hand. You had something.
Yeah, Mr. Server, I respect him very much. He's a man of peace, and he would like to see a cordial relationship developing between India and Pakistan, which is also my desire. For the last 20 years, I've been working on this project, and I think after COVID is finished, I have nothing better to do except to work for the peaceful coexistence between the two countries which were once one. What I want to say to Mr. Server, from the Indian side, there is no problem. As you can see, when Bangladesh was conquered by Indian army, they gave it back to the Bengalis. You take it. We have no territorial claim. And the journalists like you, acclaimed journalists, have to tell the people of Pakistan that we have to stop using religion to divide humanity. Because in Kashmir, everyone has the same right, including women. They can form a political party, they can elect their leader, they can run the country as they deem fit. What they can't do is devalue their fellow Kashmiri citizen by using religion instead of merit. And this is exactly what has happened in Pakistan. The leaders have promoted people to use religion to spread hatred after hatred. And if religion had the strength, then Bangladesh would still be part of Pakistan. And if religion had the strength, then Muslim country will allow free movement of people and goods throughout the Muslim Ummah. In reality, you know what is reality. They are fighting with each other from the day of memorial. So therefore, the journalists like you must promote, as Bangladesh has become a secular democratic country where equality is enshrined for everyone, infighting must end in my beautiful Pakistan, where I was born, which has got so much history, heritage, and such a rich culture. Pakistan can become a magnet. God has given a strategic place where people can do trade. India can do trade with Afghanistan, Iran, Central Asia. It should become like Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong. It should forget all this, rivalries. India has more Muslim. They are not trying to leave India. There are no queues of Muslim trying to abandon India for the Pakistan. I think on the other hand, the Bangladeshis are trying to enter India illegally, and India is trying to build a wall of offense. So therefore, the journalists have to change the mindset. We got a history of religious division, which damages the self-esteem of Muslim in India. They would like to see a peace, and the Pakistani government has sacrificed the respect and the future of Muslim in India for the sake of 8-10 million Kashmiris who are equal by constitution. So I pray to you people, let's talk about equality. My family or friends are given equal rights in Pakistan. Christian, Hindus, and everybody is given equality by constitution, and then we can move forward, because the friendship between the countries only flourishes when they share each other's values. I do not know how you have a friendship with China, which has got over 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps, and you don't have a friendship with India, where film industry is dominated by Muslim. All the top president, prime, ministers, home ministers, they're all Indian, the army generals and all that. So you should be having friendship with a country like India, rather China, who does not even treat their fellow citizen well. So that is my request.
Thank you, Lord Ranger. We have to take 2 more questions and then close.
One moment, Manish. Do I see Jane there in the audience? You don't have any question, Jane?
Jane, yeah. Jane's there.
You need to unmute yourself.
Right. Well, it's lovely to see you. I have to say, after all these years, you've meant a lot to my family. Well, politically, I'm not in a position to comment, but what I would say that I'm loving your book, and you've been so good to my family. You employed my son. He learned a lot about India. He wanted to go and live there, but it wasn't to be. And thank you for everything you've done.
Well, I'm pleased that Ben is doing extremely well in America.
Yeah, he is.
Ben was trained at ANI, and he has risen extremely well, and I'm very proud of him in US. I'm very proud of him. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
Just a couple of questions, Premji. We have a budding young journalist who's joined this discussion. And Tanushi asks, what is your view on India's standing 142nd on the Global Press Freedom Index? How can young journalists thrive in such an environment, and how can one
I don't know who works those out. I can tell you that in many ways our people have more freedom than any of the so-called developed countries. I don't know who. I was once in the newsroom long ago of New York Times, known for world over for its free views and so on and so forth. And I was there in the editorial room. Somebody important from India I was accompanying. He was he was interacting with the editorial staff of New York Times. They had asked him over. There was so much talk about about their independent reporting, etc., that finally somehow I was provoked. And I was also asked by this leader if I had any question, and I said yes. New York Times says that they have never, they've always reported honestly. And I said, how about the two China policy? At that time, United States had only recognized Formosa as China. It was not recognizing the mainland China, so it was a two China policy. I said, what is this two China policy? And you continue to recognize Formosa as China, and you are not talking about mainland China. They had no answer other than the simple fact is in defense and foreign affairs, most media around the world follow the nation or the government because in these two matters, there is usually a consensus in any nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Good question. Great answer. Last question, Premji, and this is very personal to you. He said, through all this, somebody, Frank,
Who is it from?
Farooq Galia has asked this question that, they've reading the book. How did you manage your nerves during your reporting of these traumatic events that you covered over the years?
You have to stay aloof. You know what's happening in front of you. I saw those dead bodies. There was one occasion when I definitely, again, one has to stay aloof. And I knew that where I was, there was going to take place a heavy killing. And I told, there was my colleague Chatterjee from Calcutta with me. And I told Durga, time to get away from here. They had, in Jasor, they had collected a large group of Urdu-speaking Biharis. And I knew that Bengalis were going to kill them. But I didn't want to be an eyewitness or seeing all that. So we moved away from there. It was tragic, but how I wouldn't have stopped it. So that's how I reported. One has to stay aloof. That's it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. This has been a very interesting session. We've exceeded our time limit, but it was so interesting listening to you, hearing all the good people talk about various parts of your life, your career. And I would now give it back to Shivani.
Thank you, Prem Prakash ji. I don't think, the time that we have does justice. And as, Munish has said, I'm sure 17 chapters could be 17 sessions. And we'll all look forward to reading this book and, going through it and maybe request a session after we've all read the book. But, I think you've experienced so many significant events in India's history. We just have the privilege of having you here talk about these and sharing it with our audience and on our platform. I'm really grateful for that. I'm also very thankful to Lord Ranger for releasing the book today, to our panelists, CB Patelji, to Tim, to Munish, for all joining us, and obviously last but not the least, to all our audiences who have here, and I'm sure there'll be lots to ask, but do buy the book from Amazon, which is available on Amazon UK. Everybody
Should be available.
Yes, we'll make sure that with the demand, it should be available, and we should all have our copies soon. I'll just I know we had a glitch earlier, but I'll just take a minute to play a Vidyapath video, and I'd like to thank you all once again for coming on this platform. A big thank you.
Thank you.
Vidyapath, meaning the journey of education in Sanskrit, is a UK charity that has been set up to provide qualitative and well-rounded education to the children from underprivileged backgrounds. Our school in Jaipur, Gyan Vidya Mandir, currently has 400 girls and boys from ages 4 to 18 years. They come from families where even 2 square meals a day is a privilege. The original building of the school was reconstructed to create a conducive environment to study and high caliber teachers hired to give a quality education, otherwise unaffordable for these children, giving them a better chance at life and social mobility opportunities. The school also provides them with free uniform, books, and a well balanced afternoon meal. We aim to create an awareness of our work and also raise funds by facilitating art and cultural events in the UK. We continuously endeavour to do our part, and if you would like to become a part of this journey with us, then visit our website where you can get all the information. A small contribution on your part can be life-changing for our children.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prem Prakash ji, and have a good day, everybody. I'm sure it'll be the bright spot for a few days to think and mull over, and for everything that we've heard today. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Remy.